more or less. I'd like to introduce Fedir Fesai from UTIC-2014. Fedir, you're welcome to come here for everybody to see you. A couple of words about UTIC-2014. This is a technology translation company working as a subcontractor for major foreign MLVs, and Fedir's experience includes a lot of his tools, so he kindly agreed to show us some secrets of using some tools that you definitely also use in project management and translation. And now, Fedir, you have the floor to tell us in more details what are we talking about, who is to benefit from it, and how do we start. Okay, I'll start standing here, and then I will sit at my laptop and demonstrate some simple things, elementary things in somebody's view maybe, but still. Why have I chosen this topic? The reason is, based on my experience of recruiting translators, testing their skills, and so on, I see that quite often we see some quite insufficient skills level as far as the use of CAD tools is concerned. Every month we handle about 20 CVs from various translators, and if there are 20 translators able to use and having some experience with CAD tools, that's great. And even among those who can use those tools and those who have used them out of their own will or because their customers need it, unfortunately their knowledge and skills are so insufficient that we cannot use those translators in our operations. There are some statistics, I read it like 5 years ago, which say that a lay user, PC user, would use just about 30% of, say, Microsoft Word's functionality features. With regard to other software like Excel, not to mention MS Access, it's less than 20%. So usually users are lacking, are either lazy, simply lazy, or they're lacking skills and they don't even check the software help. Look, even that Office productivity software contains a lot of features which may be of use for a translator. But when we switch to CAD tools, it becomes even less than 10%, even though it looks very simple. All those CAD tools are based on the same basic principles, same complementary features and so on. Still, we have to train those people, those translators. I was not going to discuss more sophisticated things like writing macros for terminology check, style check, and so on, but when we have a situation I've just described, I think it's better to start with simpler things. And I would always encourage you to interrupt me in the most interactive way if you have any questions or suggestions, because when using CAD tools, everybody gets his or her own tricks, which are not easily immediately visible, but maybe of use. If I ask you whether everybody has used some CAD tool, I believe that everybody has been using Trados, right? Okay. Just to better understand how should we discuss the things, I'd like to ask you, our audience, please raise your hand if you have used Trados Grim. 2 people. Out of how many? 50 people here in this room, right? Trados Glue, you don't need to install it separately. It's included and pre-installed with every version of Trados. That's why a company works with big clients. Yeah, that's another indication that I have chosen the right path, because Trados Glue is a very useful software which simply glues files together. I have had the situation many times when customer would send something. I had, for example, a project of 5,000 words, and there were 958 TTX files. So the client would just log the lines which have already been translated before, and instead of identifying things that have to be translated from scratch, the client would just send everything. They were unaware of Trados Glue, although it only takes 20 kilobytes, and all those 900-something files could be glued together with a couple of clicks in one master file, and with Alt asterisk we can easily translate 5,000 words. Imagine just 3 seconds to open and close each and every file, but with 958 files you would waste a lot of time, you would save otherwise and use for something more productive. This is a simple example, but there are others. Say there is Punta Switcher software. Who has been using Punta Switcher? Look, now more people here are using it. But the situation is more difficult with that one, because I know that many of my colleagues hate this program because they say, yeah, that's what I was just going to say. They just don't know how to use it properly. Actually, Punta Switcher can be trained very efficiently, and it accelerates translation, especially when you have texts of the same category. But I see that not everybody uses it. Now I'll have to turn my head here and there. Yeah, I have a mouth, but it doesn't work.
Something wrong. Well, for example, we work with some legal text, documents, or conventions, for example, of the European Union. So I had an experience recently. So I've got a term which grows more and more popular: politically exposed person. It can be translated differently, but in political terms it's just politically interested person. It is used many times in this convention. We cannot abbreviate it in the legal context, but it is not very easy, and it takes time to type these 3 words during the process of translation, no matter however quickly you type it. With the program, we may do this the following way. For example, we choose the combination of keys, some combination of keys. Politically exposed person as beginning with the letters P and E, for example. Just a second. It's not convenient a little bit. Wait a second. Just a second. So, politically exposed person. What we should replace it with? I'm sorry, this is XP system on this computer, and I just didn't get used to it. Okay. Let's type the word in Russian, and I use space here. And another fragment. So now, during the process of translation, when we come across such term in the legal text, it is abbreviated in many legal texts, but in the official text we cannot abbreviate it. So really, let's open some text editor program. I don't know. Okay, I know we waste time. I know, I understand. Just have a little patience. Yes, notepad. And now we shall check how notepad works at this computer. Okay, let's not waste time on it. So we type 3 letters, we press space, and all 3 words are inserted in the text, and we only have to add the endings. If there are not 1 term, but 5, 10, or 20 terms in this text, the translator only has to remember the combinations, and this actually makes the process. This makes the process of working faster. So, if we make ourselves think a little bit more, it will be actually the economy of 5, for example, hours, if we think for an hour how to save our time. If we draw the simplest examples of translators' work, we may tell about, for example, such situation. We use about 10 CAT tools, and each of them has advantages and disadvantages. We know about them. If we use our WIT on mutual conversion of programs, glossaries, and text and files, then the mutual replacement of the CAT tools might prove very beneficial. I suggest a very simple example to save time on describing CAT tools. In the majority of cases, the client provides us with the glossary when he gives us the work, and we should follow the glossary. Otherwise, the project will fail. As you all know, the clients provide the glossary in XLS format in 2 columns, in the best case. So, as an example, a glossary compiled by Electronic Arts Company. If we use some term incorrectly, they actually get very upset about it. So, how to use this glossary? The basic topic I would like to talk about: how to simplify the translator's life using this example, how to make the degree of the compatibility of this glossary higher. So, the client doesn't think how we can use such glossaries in XLS formats when he gives them to us. The simplest way is to learn them by heart and to translate every word as our clients want. I'm sure that everyone has his or her own ways of simplifying this task. But how I see it, the simplest way is to make it in such a way so that after finishing the translation, to check your translation in terms of glossary. The majority of companies or translators indicated as the means of checking the translation Xbench program. This is a very good program. It's free. Actually, it's previous version. It's very simple and very useful. How can we act in such a situation? Xbench program. So it looks like that. It is designed for checking the consistency and the terminology. This is the program. In particular, you can see and you can make searches of not only the term of the original text, but the term in the translated text. We can find such lines in which some word of the original is present and some words in the translation is present. It may help us in some way. If the term is inconsistent, for example, and we know the incorrect translation, we can filter all the lines in which this term is present and the lines in which it is translated incorrectly. I hope you understand what I mean. We can place files translated by us here. It supports lots of formats, lots of popular formats used for localization, and we may add this glossary which had been sent to us also here. That's the simplest way the translator can follow. To copy XLS format lines and to save this file in the program of Xbench. After that, he can add this program to Xbench project. And when we add this glossary in Xbench program, we can see all the lines, and if one line of the source text is translated differently, or numbers don't coincide in English and in Russian, each term is checked in terms of glossary and its correctness. Every line which is shown here might be shown by pressing the combination of Ctrl-Enter, and we can see the lines containing the terms here. This takes very little time and it increases the quality of our translations significantly. What is more important that every client we are given our translation to will check the translation for sure and to see if that it is correct, and our reputation actually will be higher and the client will be satisfied more. What can we do more with the glossary? That's a bit more complex procedure to take these glossary into account during the process of translation. So the people using Trados also use such program as Multiturn. If the client can provide the terminological base, Multiturn can also make its own base of terms, not only on the basis of the glossary provided by the client, but on the basis of the terms, which might slightly differ from the original ones. We may, in a similar way, create the table in the XLS format, and we may make similar databases which are which have Trados compatibility. So I could demonstrate this example if somebody is interested. Not to spoil the impression made by Electronic Arts company, we can create our own database. By the way, have you paid your attention that the letters are automatically turned into Cyrillic ones? I'm sorry, I didn't get accustomed to such machine. That's not my computer, and I need to get accustomed to it. Now I'm demonstrated how to use Workbench. I'm demonstrating. Database. So you can see all the formats you can use. That's very good because every client has his own programs he uses, either it's XDLX files or databoard or whatever. Now we add TTX files here. It defines the format itself. And now we check that you can also exclude blocked lines, and there are lots of other possibilities. I won't dwell on it. Unfortunately, there are no errors in this file, but believe me, there will be errors in your translation. Okay, it has found one mistake. For example, untranslated segment. Okay, now I press Ctrl-Alt, Enter, and it opens the file exactly on that line, which is not translated correctly. So this is understandable. Now, with the help of Multiturn convert, as far as I see, it will take a long time to convert this file into multi-term base database. And again, I don't know your level of knowing traders. After that, we will create the database of Multiturn. Here we can include it here. And now, during the process of translation, we can switch a lot of databases, and you will see the window where all the terms with their translation will be shown, which you can see in that segment. And the translator won't have to find them in the document, and you will be able to insert them into translation using the combination of keys and change only the endings or context of the words, and it makes the work faster. I presume you haven't understood everything what I was saying about. And one more way to simplify your life is based on the example of the same glossary. You can make temp. You can make temp using this glossary. Sometimes the clients have terminological database, and we can make advantage of it. We create from 10 file, we can make a database, to be more precise. So we have TM file, and we export the text file from it. And this text file is just imported to MDB format, recognized by Multiturn and Trados. And in the same way, we see the terms here. The terms we have selected to improve the quality of our translation, or the terms provided by our client. Just here. On the basis of the things I have talked about, I think that you all are experienced and you know how the system works. These were the simple examples of how you can use the glossary to improve the quality of your translation. There might be lots of other examples. Everything depends on the program required by your client to use. And the main thing I want to emphasize is that before saying that some CAD tool is bad, it is worth thinking that perhaps we cannot use it. Of course, the matter of taste it's a question of a matter of taste, but every program had been created to facilitate the process of translation. And they may work with files of different programs. Some format of files may not work in one or another program. And by means of simple search operations, we can simplify the translation task for ourselves. Sometimes there is a very simple example. I can recall a very simple example. We had a task of translating some mobile platform, mobile application. I looked at the text and I saw that it was some general topic, and the first solution I invented, I thought it was an elementary solution. So you should come to Trust portal, that's a linguistic Microsoft portal, and there is an option of importing database according to topics in TM files. I took some program and I imported Microsoft database, which is quite legally because they provided this client themselves. I made TM file from it and it reduced the volume of work twice. That's one of the simplest examples. Usually the translator, when he gets some work, he wants to save time and he just sits and begins to translate at once. Instead of searching Google, for example.
Another example here. It was quite a while ago. We have got some legal text, some convention or directive or whatever, and then we started translating it, or more exactly, it was assigned to some translator, and the translator started translating it. I just looked briefly at it, and I thought there was something familiar in it. I Googled for the name of the directive, and it turned out that there has been some certified translation on the internet, which is pretty much 100% what we needed. And of course it was about my conscience whether we should tell the client that this text doesn't need our translation. But even if we don't mention such elementary things, you know, there are elementary things like search on the internet, search through databases that the translator has, because there are some translation memories provided by another client, for example. Localization is not such a broad area where subjects would never intersect. So instead of analyzing this text, source text once or twice, but using another translation memory you have for such analysis. And when you do these elementary things, quite often the word count would reduce by 30 or 40% if we have been working for a long time and expanding our translation memory. And when translating, especially for a freelancer, it's useful if you're not that lazy. You set up some databases, some TMs, and fill them based on your understanding of terminology. For example, the client would provide 3 files on the same subject, but for different types of equipment, for example. You may evaluate whether this file can be useful for the future, and then you create another translation memory, and you fill it with the content from those files if you, the translator, believes that they may be of use in the future. If you go even further, then you don't just add the content of those files, but instead you add certain specific segments. An elementary example I forgot to mention at the very beginning. Quite often, and definitely you had such situations too, there are many projects where you have a list of languages or a list of countries. And whatever strange it may seem, but it took me quite a while to realize it based on my whole experience. But then I realized that it would be make my life easier, much easier, if I spent half a day to create an accurate translation of each country name or language name, then you check it against some geographic registers and so on to make sure that these countries are indeed called this particular way. And sometimes this list of countries includes, for example, 200 segments. Like for Microsoft, you may have 200 segments and you translate them in one click, in a second. But usually people are lazy enough, they don't do it, and then every time they get this list of countries, they spend time on translating it, and this time is accumulated, and it could be eliminated altogether. This is an example how people are able to make their life easier if they want to do it, if they try to do it. If, of course, that person wants to be or consider him or herself a quality translator, because, you know, quite often there are translators who want to work as translators, who believe themselves to be great translators, but then they would print out the source text, put this piece of paper next to their display screen, and then they start translating, looking at that paper. Of course, this is a sad situation. I don't know how our universities train their students. Soon we are to listen to the presentation by Professor Taraskiak, and I will definitely ask him this question: what are our universities doing when training translators? Because, you know, then people graduate, they don't know what is the text format. Well, let's start Q&A. Yeah, I said from the very beginning that I'm always ready for any sort of questions. Maybe I would suggest, if you have been faced with any problems in the course of your activities, then let's think together. Microphone, please. You have mentioned this word, run, but it has a lot of synonyms. For example, it means run as a runner in one case, but in another case, speaking about software, it means like to operate. So how do you put synonyms in that database? Should you use several columns in Excel? Multiturn supports synonyms, but how do you enter those synonyms through the converter, through Multiturn? Well, when you launch this converter, it has an option like allow multiple translations of the same term. So there are several columns, right, for translated terms. No, you don't need to create columns. It simply makes, in the course of conversion, you can simply indicate that it's allowed. And in Excel, it will be not several columns, but it will have like run 1, run 2, run 3. So it has a run at 3 terms, yeah, with different translations. And in that case, in this window, you will have several translations, 2 arrows, and you choose one of those. Yeah, I know how it works. I just thought on the process side how it looks like. Would it take too much time to show it? Because, you know, it's better to see once. Yeah, too long? Well, I wanted to show it from the very beginning, but based on this laptop's power, well, it will be quite resource-intensive project. It could take tens of minutes for conversion. Actually, multi-term conversion process is not that simple because you have to create an index file first, and then the multi-term database is created within multi-term. Well, regarding multi-term convert, those of you who read Город переводчиков, Russian translators, forum translators city, there are questions about Studio 2009, and there has been a very detailed manual in that forum, step-by-step manual, how to, for those who want to master the conversion between different formats, including conversion from Excel into multi-term. It's easier to read. Of course. I mean, just there are many questions in Translator City about questions about Studio 2009. Well, I'd like to add something. Quite often there are incompatibility issues between different versions, and often translators are scared. They see an older version and it says, "Oh, I cannot convert this file because I have an older version," and then the translator tries to do it somehow and then forgets about it and continues working in an old way. Although there is always some solution. You just shouldn't be lazy. I'd also like to add this. Often the client would find some translator at prozet.com, for example, and they would say, "Okay, you're a great translator, and now I need you to translate some brochure which we have in PDF format. Would you be able to do it?" And the translator would usually say, "Yeah, of course I can do it." And then the translator starts fighting, trying to OCR that PDF file using, say, AB Fine Reader, or print it out, copy and paste it into Microsoft Word, and so on. Another translator would do it in a different way, and I would like that other translator more. That other translator would ask, "Do you have a source file which was used to make that PDF?" And the client would ask, "What is the source file?" And then the translator would say, ask people who provided you with that PDF file. Usually they would outsource it through some company which does layout, design, and so on. And usually they have their frame maker files, for example, which were used to create that brochure. So please ask those people to whom that work was outsourced for those source frame maker files. And then when we get those frame maker files, we can easily make a project in Trados Studio, and we put those FM frame maker files there. We create a project and we translate it in a very nice way without any copy and paste. You immediately get a tagged format. You don't need to think much about it. You link the translation memory, you translate it, you make the target file, and we provide the client with the same sort of files. And again, that client would use those files to create the same layout in 2 clicks, and they are happy about it, and they say you're great guys. But not everybody wants to work with clients properly and work with themselves. Yeah, when you want to do something, you'll do it. And there is something added from T-Service people who are always awake. Now they say that multi-term dictionary can be easily created through glossary converter plugin from SDL Open Exchange. Yeah, a great advice, great piece of advice. I just don't completely understand. What do you mean multi-term glossary or dictionary? Well, you're welcome to ask Yuri from T-Service, Yuri Bebik. Okay, let's finish with Fedir's presentation here. Thank you, Fedir.